We just watched the ACC Championship game go down to the wire. I get a text on my phone. Bro, I get 4 text messages. Bro, SMU. Turn the game on, kicking the field goal, 31-31. I don't know how it happened. So, Toddy, for someone who sweated that whole game out, what were your thoughts seeing Clemson come down to the very end and kick a field goal to make sure that this game does not go into overtime?
This was a FOMO bet that I made. Kevin and I were both sweating out the Georgia and Texas game, and that didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to. So we're like, okay, well, this other game's about to start. What we got to get in where we fit in. Oregon scores super fast, so Kev's like, I'm out. I can't really do nothing anymore. The spread's way too high. And even if you would have got in at 7.5, I think you still would have been all right. I got in at 3.5 right before they scored. Had SMU money line on there. I originally had them minus 2.5. That would have I would be even more mad. Yeah, kind of to start this game out. I believe SMU got the ball first, and I mean, just right out the gate, turnover. It gives Clemson pretty much a short field. Clemson does what they're supposed to do whenever a team is inside of the red zone, scores a touchdown, quick, fast, and hurry. The next drive, SMU is not really able to get anything going. Clemson is able to kind of force them off the field. Klubnik goes down. Klubnik goes down, drives, and scores another touchdown. So now all of a sudden it's 14-0, and it's the first quarter. Pretty much everything's going wrong for them. SMU is kind of out of sorts. This is probably the biggest game that they've had on their entire schedule. A lot of people, including another person on this podcast, criticize SMU for how good their team actually is, and they haven't played anybody. This is, they're going to get washed pretty much. And I mean, I couldn't blame Kevin because SMU's schedule is not the best. But I think they're how they kind of handled teams throughout the year and how they kind of controlled the game for the majority of the season throughout each and every game they played. They pretty much played in besides their 2 losses prior. They looked pretty dominant. And I thought that was what we were going to see coming in, but SMU was pretty much playing catch up the entire game. I thought Kevin Jennings, the quarterback for SMU, kind of started to get out of his shell a little bit after those first couple of drives. They end up going down and scoring, making it a 14-7 game. After that, Clemson responds, I believe, with another touchdown. And it was kind of a stalemate, kind of back and forth, I'd say, throughout the second quarter. And then Klubnik had like 3 touchdowns in like the first, he had 4 total, but he had like 3 in like the first quarter. So Clemson was kind of just trying to hold on to the lead for the majority of the game. I thought SMU's defense, when they weren't like on their own 10-yard line, they played really well, in my opinion. Pretty much only gave up like 14 points. 10, they're 21, 13 points, I'd say, for the rest of the game. And I thought SMU's defense, their front line looked pretty stout. They were getting a bunch of tackles for losses. I thought Klubnik put the ball in harm's way a lot early on in this game. There was a bunch of turnover-worthy plays where, like, the ball is hitting the defender square in the chest, and, when a DB, they, like, start running down, put their heads on their head. I've seen a DB do that at least 3-4 times in the second half. Like, that should have been an interception. But, yeah, Klubnik ends up with 0 turnovers. I feel like that probably was the story of the game. Those 2 turnovers that Kevin Jennings had early in the game kind of came back to haunt them a little bit. SMU did have, I believe, 2 missed field goals, or 1 missed field goal, if I'm not mistaken. But it was pretty, hard to watch in the beginning stages of the game. But once the second half hit, I thought SMU settled in. Their defense looked really well. Jennings settled in. They were getting the running back involved, Brashad Smith, the running back for SMU. Had 114 yards rushing, and he also had, I believe, 34 yards receiving. So, an all-around player from their running back. I feel like he was really big down the stretch. on the drive to tie it. And next thing you know, SMU is in the red zone about to score to tie the game up with like 16 seconds left. There were a couple of drives before this game where people were questioning Rhett Lashley, the head coach for SMU, whether they should go for it or just punt it. And kind of, I got to give a lot of credit to Rhett Lashley. He trusted his defense, and his defense, they stood tall, I thought, on a bunch of times where they ended up punting the ball back to Clemson. Clemson ended up getting the ball, and SMU was able to stop them, pretty much force, I wouldn't say a 3 and out, but they were able to force, get Clemson a 4th down and end up forcing them to punt. And SMU ended up getting the ball back, and they were driving down the field and scoring. And I thought it was all sunshines and roses. 16 seconds left. What's the worst that could happen? I think Clemson had like a timeout left. You're about to kick this ball, out of bounds. They probably need it. We go into overtime. Nope. Ball goes into play. The receiver Randall, forget what his name is. It is something Randall. Yeah, he had like a 50-yard return, which basically got them to midfield, and they only needed like yards or so to get within field goal range, 23-ish yards. True freshman kicker. They get I think they get like 20 something yards. They were a little outside of his max range, which was like he had a 51-yarder earlier in the year, but yeah, the kicker came out, true freshman, and smacks a 56-yard field goal to win the game. And I'm just kind of like, what just happened? First of all, how do you let this ball get into play? This ball should have been kicked out of bounds. Like, I don't know what it was. A complete meltdown from the special teams unit, and kind of just, it's literally that close. When the game is that close, it's going to come down to your special teams. And SMU had a missed kick. SMU, fucked around on the last part of the game on special teams. I thought SMU's defense played well. SMU lost a turnover battle, so you only get so many chances in a game like this to determine if you're going to go to the literally the college football playoff. Because SMU kind of knew going into this game, they don't win, they're probably out. Clemson's a 3-loss team already. SMU's schedule didn't really favor them. This was the game. This was the prove a game. Like, hey, you guys are as good as you say you are. You should win this game. Had a bunch of opportunities. I wouldn't be shocked if the committee comes out and says, hey, Alabama, they got to win over Georgia. Georgia won the SEC. SMU, better luck next year. So,
for the audio-only listeners and for the listeners, we always bring up the group chat. And me and Toddy chat throughout the day. And I told him, I sent him delay, and I said, my nigga Joe says Clemson by 3. And first couple minutes of the game, Toddy's like, Kevin, you might be right. Joe might have been right. For those of you that don't know the inside joke, his name is Joel, but I thought it was Joe. But
like
Clay
Joe Platt.
After the way they started the season for Clemson and now be able to come in here and do this thing, like Toddy mentioned, I was the one saying that SMU really didn't play anybody. So they got here undeservedly so. So when everyone the gangster till a gangster come to your front door. You know what I mean? So it was interesting to see SMU compete. They didn't give up. They could have sat down and gave this game up, but they kept going all the way through.